Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the press conference following our Special European Council Summit. We'll start with the President of the European Council, Charles Michel. President.
Bonjour à chacune.
Good afternoon to all of you. We've got an agreement on the multi-annual financial framework. This is an agreement which shows the leadership of the European Council and of the European Union. In December, we'd already made significant progress to give candidate status to Ukraine and to Moldova, and to start negotiations with Ukraine and Moldova. And today, we're going a step further. We got the 27 heads of state and government to reach political agreement, which will allow us to mobilize 50 extra billion euros as part of the Ukraine facility. I think that this decision sends out a very clear message to the Ukrainians and shows our determination to be fully mobilized to support their future, to support their freedom, and it's also a message to our European populations. It shows our unity and European leadership, and it shows that we are not intimidated by Russia, which is infringing international law. And it's a message to the United States, to our partners in the world, that we support Ukraine and its territorial integrity. This financial agreement will also allow us in the future to spend money on other subjects, the Western Balkans, for example, migration, the external dimension of migration, on technology and on defence. Now, on Ukraine, that's an absolute priority for us and will remain so.
So, military support for Ukraine. We had the occasion today to discuss in depth how it is important to make more effort for more ammunition, for more military equipment for Ukraine. We have made good progress in supporting Ukraine through the European Peace Facility. We have decided to task our ministers to finalize work. We understand how it is important to deliver. And this debate today was extremely useful to make very clear that we are determined to make more efforts and to make sure that Ukraine will get the military equipment they need to defend their country and to defend their future. We also had the occasion to welcome the political agreement on using windfall profits on Russian frozen assets to help rebuild Ukraine. And the idea is to continue to work on this track, which is also an important one. And once again, we have discussed how we need to address the question of the circumvention of sanctions. We are still determined to make sure that everything is done to reduce the possibilities to avoid those sanctions which target Russia and the Kremlin. This is the first element I wanted to mention for this European Council meeting. The second topic I would like to mention and to explain what we have discussed is the situation in the Middle East. And you know that we do not have written conclusions on the Middle East, but we had once again an in-depth exchange of views on the situation in that region. Et je voudrais tenter de vous résumer.
And let me try to give you a summary of what we agreed on that subject. The first point is that we are extremely determined to continue in Europe and with the support of our member states to reduce as much as possible the risks of regional escalation, in particular in the Red Sea. We know how important that is. And the second point is that we, of course, are determined to continue to do what we can to plead for the freeing of the hostages with no conditions attached, and we will continue in partnership with member states and also our international partners to do what we can to make sure that humanitarian aid is delivered to Gaza. We know that there is a major pressing need on that subject. Every civilian life counts, and that's why we need to be mobilized there. And the third point I wanted to mention, because here too there was strong political agreement within the European Council, and that is how important it is to relaunch the negotiation process for a two-state solution. And we once again called that that's called out for a two-state solution, a guarantee of the existence of the two peoples, that they can coexist in peace in the future. And so we need there to be peace, not just between Israel and the Palestinians, but between Israel and all of its neighbouring countries as well. We discussed what the elements were, led by High Representative Borrell. And we had the idea of initiating a peace conference with other actors, and we will be coming back to that at a future European Council, to that subject. And our ministers will continue to be very engaged in such an important subject. And a final word, we're meeting at a time where in a number of European countries, including in Belgium, and you will have seen that around this building, that our farmers are expressing their anger, their discontent and their concerns about the future. And it's important for us to address that subject as well. And we have reaffirmed not just how important the common agricultural policy is for us, it's one of the core pillars of European policy. And there's an essential role for the common agricultural policy. And after that, the Commission told us about the first short-term measures that have been taken, and also a process that has been launched to bring together points, some of the major points that came out of our meeting, which showed once again that the European Council can surprise people by our unity and our capacity to discuss and reach speedy solutions to difficult questions and difficult problems. And so I'd like to thank all of the teams who've worked so hard since December, in fact, since the day after the last summit, where we decided to come back today to reach answers to questions such as Ukraine. Thank you.
President von der Leyen, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Today is indeed a very special day. The European Council reconfirmed Europe's unwavering commitment to stand with Ukraine. We all know that Ukraine is fighting for us, so we will support them with the necessary funding and provide them with the much-needed predictability they deserve. And I think these 50 billion euros for 4 years also send a very strong message to Putin, just ahead of the second anniversary of his brutal invasion. But today we also agreed on the first ever revision of our multi-annual budget. It confirms the priorities that the Commission has presented back in June. And I'm very satisfied that we got 80% of the funding we asked for. We had certainly some difficult choices to make, but we have a very good result. We reaffirmed our commitment to fight illegal migration. We reaffirmed our commitment to support our Western Balkan partners. This is the part of the growth plan that is in that budget, and the southern neighbourhood. We will also increase our ability to deal with natural disasters in member states and humanitarian crises such as Gaza. And furthermore, STEP will support the much-needed development of critical technologies in Europe, including on defence, and increase our competitiveness. So with this agreement, Europe stands united and is well equipped for the challenges ahead. In other words, today Europe got stronger. We will also continue to support the brave Ukrainian armed forces to fight off the brutal invaders. Our military assistance to Ukraine has met an unprecedented level of effort. So far, the European Union and its member states have mobilized 28 billion euros worth of military equipment. And of course, more is coming, and of course, more is needed. More tanks, helicopters, air defense systems, missiles, and of course, more ammunition. The European defense industry, has already increased its production capacity by 40%, and this is still growing. Over 80 European manufacturers have responded to our call for proposals, so we will be signing the contracts in a matter of weeks. And we're working with the member states to get that ammunition to Ukraine, be it from the national stocks, or be it by diverting other orders, or making new orders, as I've just described. We will have delivered 520,000 rounds of artillery shell by March, and we will more than double this amount by the end of this year. On top of that, we have been training Ukrainian soldiers, 40,500 so far mid-February. But this support must increase, and that was the discussion today. In fact, Russia's invasion has also been a wake-up call for the whole of the European Union. So while we keep supporting Ukraine, we need to bolster our own military capacities too. We're working to take our defence industry to the next level, and this is why the Commission will soon present a new defence industrial strategy. It will introduce a stronger European dimension across our defence industry, and this goes from planning to procurement. Will have a greater coherence and coordination at the European Union's level. With this strategy, we aim to make Europe move from the emergency response to a defence readiness. Let me add a few words on the discussion on agriculture. Farmers play an essential role in Europe's economy and society, and their work contributes greatly to our food security and indeed also to our way of life. And they are key actors in ensuring the sustainable use of natural resources. They live with nature and from nature. It is, after all, the basis of their livelihoods and thus also the basis of our livelihood. European farmers are dynamic. In 2022, productivity improved 13% thanks to their efforts. And they also contribute positively to our external trade. Last year, again, agri-food exports increased by 5%. So I think it is fair to say that our farmers have shown remarkable resilience in the face of the recent crisis. But many challenges remain. For example, the tension on prices, agri-food prices, or a very competitive global market that leads to uncertainty, and of course the need to remain competitive while working to high standards and environmental protection, a very complex endeavour. The farmers can count on European support. The Common Agricultural Policy budget allocates close to 390 billion euros. That is almost 1/3 of the European budget to agriculture. And in 2023 alone, Europe provided exceptional assistance of over 500 million euros to farmers most affected by crisis. We know that this support is crucial, and we know that farmers are making good use of it. But in parallel, the Commission is now working closely with the Member States to address the immediate challenges. This week, for example, we have proposed additional flexibility to farmers on the so-called fallow land use. And we have proposed safeguards on poultry, eggs and sugar imports from Ukraine to avoid a significant surge in imports. Finally, of course, we have to defend legitimate interests of farmers in our trade negotiations, in particular in ensuring a level playing field in terms of standards when we have trade agreements. And I'm very sensitive to the message that farmers are concerned by administrative burden. This is a general topic. You know that this is close to my heart, to reduce these administrative burdens. So we will work with the Belgian presidency on a proposal that we then will present ready in time before the next Agricultural Council to work on reducing these administrative burdens. Last, but certainly not least, it's the long-term, mid- and long-term proposal. As you know, we have started last week the strategic dialogue on the future of agriculture in the European Union. In other words, we have convened all the different stakeholders, of course the farmers' representatives, the young farmers, but also the food processors, those who work in environmental NGOs, Greenpeace, other stakeholders in the whole overall agricultural topic. The aim is that together we develop an idea, a vision, and a roadmap how to reach our common goals. It was very reassuring to hear that all stand behind the common goal to reach climate neutrality by 2050. But how to get there? This has to be developed with the farmers, with their knowledge, because they have many ideas that are very interesting to move forward on this topic. So this was also a strategic dialogue that we started last week, but of course it will bring the answers in the mid and long term that will feed in the program of the next Commission and certainly have an influence on the next negotiations on the CAP.
Thank you, President. We will open now the floor to questions. We'll start with Lawrence.
Thanks very much. Lawrence Norman at the Wall Street Journal. I have two questions. One, a slightly technical one. Is the plan for the 50 billion in the short term to continue to give Ukraine 1.5 billion a month? And if the US doesn't provide the assistance that it's trying to get through Congress, what would it take to increase that amount? And secondly, a political question. At a time when there are multiple global crises and Europe faces all kinds of challenge, do you and the other EU leaders share what Donald Tusk called this morning Orban fatigue?
You want me to start?
Please.
Okay, so indeed, the 50 billion package is not evenly distributed over 4 years, but we have the flexibility within this package to distribute the money as it is needed and best allocated. No decision has been taken in detail so far, but it's not a rigid delivery, but in itself a flexible budget. Well, and the second question I think I leave to you.
I understand better why you wanted to ask first, to reply first. No, thank you, and I would like to tell you that I'm absolutely convinced that the role of the European Council is to try to be the guardian of the European unity, and it's challenging. It's not always easy. Sometimes it requires a lot of effort. But look, in December, we took everyone by surprise because we were able in December to make fundamental decisions in order to open negotiations with Ukraine and with Moldova. And we had an agreement with 26 countries on 27 on what we call the nego box, the proposal of budgetary review. And I'm extremely pleased that once again we succeeded to guarantee the unity of the European Union and to make sure that 27 countries made an agreement on the review of the multi-annual framework, including this very strong political signal that we sent to Ukraine with this package of 50 billion euros. And for what you asked about the United States, I repeat once again that I'm absolutely convinced that this decision is also a signal to the American taxpayers. This is a demonstration that within the EU we assume we take our responsibility and we know that we must show our leadership and we must show that we are reliable, that we are credible. And I hope that it will be also help those in the United States to be those who are determined to get concrete results in terms of additional financial support for Ukraine, and not only in the United States, because we have many like-minded partners across the world.
Grazie.
Thank you. My name is Razia Akoch, work for Agence France Presse, AFP news agency. I wanted to ask, because of some of the comments that Orban had made, did Mr. Orban receive any assurances or guarantees that funds would be unlocked? Did he get anything? And this is a question for both of you.
Moi, je veux être extrêmement...
Let me be absolutely clear. We had a debate on the MFF. We had a debate to confirm the agreement of the 26 on the whole package with the funds for Ukraine, the 50 billion and money for the Western Balkans, migration, solidarity and natural disasters. Those are just a few of the subjects that we discussed. That's the first point. And if you look at the conclusions, you will see that we also refer back to the conclusions from 2020. In those conclusions, we said that the Commission had a responsibility to implement or to allocate funds. So basically, this is a reference back to what we agreed in December 2020, and we are sure that the Commission will carry out the necessary assessments on the basis of progress made. It was an important meeting in terms of confidence, and when you manage to get an agreement amongst 27 heads of state, I think that goes to show that there is enough trust around the table to move forwards in the same direction, even though at the outset there was different points of view. We saw that in December. In December, we had support from 26, but we still had to bring the 27th member state on board for the agreement on the MFF, including funds for Ukraine. And you will also see that we have ensured that there will be an annual debate on funding of the Ukraine facility. And there, the Commission will be invited to make proposals where necessary.
It's very simple. There is a law. There's a law on cohesion funds, there is a law on Next Generation EU, and there's a law on the conditionality mechanism. And these laws have nothing to do with the Ukraine facility and the midterm review. This was reassured today, and therefore the answer to your question is a simple no.
Thank you, President. Robert.
Thank you very much. Robert Lupițu, Calea Europeană, Romanian Media. Two questions, one for President, the first one for President Michel. While thanking and feeling grateful for the support that he has gained from the European Union, President Zelensky also fears that if the United States will not be able to support further, then maybe Europe will follow the same trace. After this deal today, do you think that the European Union can and will be able to support Ukraine, whether and if the United States will not be able to do it in the near term or after the November elections? And for President von der Leyen, a question on migration and Schengen. One of the ideas that came through after this reshuffle of the budget, we have 2 extra billion euros for migration and border management, a request from the Austrian government. Do you feel that it's a good step and enough in order to ensure the full joining of Romania and Bulgaria in Schengen with also the land borders? Thank you.
I would like to affirm that we are absolutely determined to support Ukraine, and the decision that we made today is one additional proof of that. We are extremely determined to support Ukraine because we understand very well what's at stake. And I repeat again that we know that the Ukrainians are fighting for their own future, they are fighting for their children, they are fighting for the democratic principles, they are also fighting for our democratic principles, they are fighting for the rule of law, for the international law, for the UN Charter, for all those principles we strongly believe in, and is the DNA of this European Union's project. That's why there is a strong support for Ukraine, not only with money. This was an important decision made today, but also with military equipment and with political support. And this is the enlargement process, which is a clear signal that you are not intimidated by the Russian behavior and by the Kremlin's behavior. I cannot talk on behalf of the United States, but I am confident that this decision that you have made today will help in the United States those who are determined to support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
As you know, the Commission is since years convinced that Romania and Bulgaria are ready for Schengen. And it was very helpful that in the last month we have had several projects funded by the European Union to strengthen the border in Romania and Bulgaria, also the processes at the border, and that we had fact-finding missions that were convincing for the first steps now that were done by Austria concerning Schengen. air and sea. And I'm deeply convinced, and you can count on us, that we will continue with strengthening the border and convincing Austria that this is a full-fledged achievement by Romania and Bulgaria that deserves being in Schengen fully. And indeed, I think we have proven today by these 50 billion euros that we stand by Ukraine. And I think it will be an encouragement for the United States also to do their fair share.
Take the last question, David.
Thank you. Thank you, David Carretta, Radio Radicale Italian Radio. A question on Ukraine, but on the other issue, the debate on deliveries of weapons and so on, ammunition. Today, President Zelensky, in his speech, asked for 20 billion, 5 billion per year for 4 years. In the conclusion of the European Council, there is no figures. In the draft, there was one figure of 5 billion. Are you ready to go full in support of Ukraine? We have seen more and more critical messages from Kiev, for example, on the fact that Europe is not doing what is saying it wants to do. And the second question on Ukraine to the President of the Commission, when you say prioritizing ammunition contracts, what do you mean? Are you ready to do what you have done with vaccines, for example? So blocking deliveries to third country because Ukraine is the priority or not? Si je peux une question en français.
Perhaps just one question in French as well. We know that the farmers are outside. Now, in revising the budget, you're cutting 1.2 billion from the Common Agricultural Policy and from the Cohesion Policy. Isn't there a contradiction there when you say we want a CAP which is closer to the farmers, and then you take the decision to cut the European budget? And not just that, there's Horizon and other things you're cutting as well. So isn't that a bit of a negative message?
Là, je vais commencer à répondre.
Let me start on that. On the second question. It's not fair to say we're cutting. It's the opposite, really. We're putting more money in. Perhaps not as many as the European Commission wanted, but nevertheless, if you compare it to the current MFF, we are increasing the money there. It's important to say that because lots of people are saying, I've read a lot that we're cutting, and it's not the case. We're increasing quite significantly the money available, not as much as the Commission wanted. The Commission were even more ambitious than the MFF, but that, nevertheless, the money is going up. Now, you said 1.2, 1.5 billion euros in the cohesion fund, and that's not money that's going for direct support to member states. It's administrative money linked to managing the cohesion funds. And so that's just a little technical point relating to your second question. Now, on the first question, it's essential.
Fundamental. And I can tell you that in preparation of that meeting and during the meeting, we felt how the leaders, they are aware, they are conscious that this is fundamental to deliver and to deliver on our promises. And remember that a few months ago, we made the promise, we committed to deliver 1 million ammunition by the end of the year. We need to speed up, we need to accelerate, and we need to identify what are the reasons for us to be too slow in our deliveries. And you, in your question, you mentioned an important topic, and I had the occasion in the meeting to draw the attention of the colleagues on the topic. This is the question of the exports to third countries. And here, based on my understanding, this is a responsibility at the national level to allow the companies to export to third countries. This is one possible tool, one possible leverage. This is a national responsibility, point one. But there are some other elements. We need also to see with the companies, with the defense companies, if we can adapt some orders, if we can try also to identify how we can speed up the production, to be able to deliver more quickly to the Ukraine. But we had a good discussion on that. We were very operational, and I can tell you this is also a debate we had in close coordination with the High Representative, who is playing a very important important role to try to coordinate the ministers of defense so that there is a clear clarity among the member states who is doing what and what can we do to be more effective in that field. And finally, you said 5 billion on a yearly basis or 20 billion on a multi-annual basis for the European Peace Facility. This is not in the text. Yes, in fact, this is subtle, but this is in the text because we refer in the text of the conclusions to the proposal on the table. And the proposal on the table is this 5 billion on a yearly basis and 20 in total. But what's the most important thing? The member states, and this is very legitimate, they would like to work in parallel on the numbers and on the modalities. And probably the direction we should take, in my opinion, for the European Peace Facility is the following. We should shift from a reimbursement mechanism, and when we started, it was a more reimbursement approach that we have put in place for obvious reasons to be very quick and to be very efficient, towards an approach more based on common procurements and support for the European defence industry. And it's exactly what we are discussing with the member states. There's a proposal put on the table by the High Representative and by the Commission, and it was very interesting to observe that the member states would like to be actively part of those debates by making suggestions to improve this reform, this decision-making process, and at the end to have a strong tool in addition with the bilateral efforts that are made by the member states to support Ukraine with more military equipment.
Yeah, I think almost everything has been said. So just wanted to remind that is this famous three-track approach that has been weeks ago proposed by the Commission and agreed by the European Council. So within this frame, all these activities take place.
Thank you for attending.
Savons que nous ne sommes pas intimidés par la Russie qui enfreint le droit international. C'est aussi savons que nous ne sommes pas intimidés par la Russie qui enfreint le droit international. C'est aussi un progress in supporting Ukraine through the European Peace Facility. We have decided to task. We're clear that we are determined to make more efforts and to using windfall profits on Russian frozen assets to help rebuild Ukraine. And the idea is to track, which is also an important one. And once again, we have discussed how we need to address the question of the conclusions on the Middle East, but yet, once again, an in-depth exchange of views on the situation in that region. Le deuxième point, nous sommes évidemment tout à fait déterminés à continuer à plaider avec force, sans relâche, pour la libération des... chaque vie civile compte, et c'est pour cette raison que nous devons être très mobilisés. Et enfin, le troisième, en Belgique, et cela se voit y compris autour de ce bâtiment, nos agriculteurs manifestent de la colère de préparer dans le processus démocratique européen au travers d'un souci d'écoute alimentaire en termes de santé, en termes de capacité de traiter les différentes facettes qui touchent.
Member states and humanitarian crises such as Gaza. And furthermore, STEP will support the much more is needed, more tanks, helicopters, air defense systems, missiles, and of course more ammunition too. We're working to take our defense...
I politik.
Hurtig drejning, beslutning, I fik truffet. Kan du prøve at tage os lidt med i lokalet, og så fortælle os, hvad det var, der skete, og hvad det var, der skulle til, for at slippe det her veto fra offensiv?
Det er jo noget af det magiske ved politik, at nogle gange kan det mest umulige pludselig blive muligt, og det var det, der skete i dag. Lidt som i december måned, hvor der også ligesom var lagt op til, at der måske ville være et ungarsk veto, vi ikke ville kunne komme videre med den her nødvendige udvidelsessnak, især med Ukraine. Så lykkedes det i december, så nu arbejder vi videre med udvidelse, og det lykkes i dag, og det vil sige, at pengene til Ukraine er på plads. Det er fuldstændig afgørende, helt aldeles afgørende.
Men hvad var det, der skulle til, og betyder det så, at man har fundet en strategi også for de her veto i fremtiden? Altså, prøv at forklare specifikt, hvad det var, der skulle til.
Må ikke, vi skal tage et møde ad gangen. Det er i hvert fald den måde, vi arbejder på lige nu. Jamen, det er jo et udtryk for, at der har været en masse politiske samtaler og diskussioner i gang, og pludselig gik tingene op i en højere enhed, og det gik meget hurtigt, og det er rigtig, rigtig positivt, fordi Ukraine har jo siddet og ventet. Kommer pengene? Bliver de udbetalt? Er der en stabilitet i de kommende år? Især hensyn til, hvor svær situationen er på slagmarken lige nu. Så som europæer er der egentlig bare grund til at være glad i dag.
Har det skadet troværdigheden for EU's udenrigspolitik, at der ligesom er gået en 5-6 uger, hvor der har været tvivl om EU overhovedet var i stand til at hjælpe Ukraine med penge? Det er ikke noget, der